I believe I am live, and welcome to Tuesday Night Raw Q&A with Dr. Andi, me. So I hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday, and welcome. We talk about all kinds of things here, essentially like, raw feeding, species appropriate diet, natural rearing of our animals, doing things a little bit different. My name is Andi Harper. I am a doctor of chiropractic. I'm a certified animal chiropractor. I've been in practice for 20 years. And this is basically everything I've learned in 20 years from my clients. I'm not a veterinarian. None of this should be misconstrued as veterinary advice or treatment. It's just what has worked for me and my animals and my clients for so many years. And more for food for thought, so you can go out and educate yourselves. Let me see. YouTube has a bunch of extra boxes open this evening. It is 6 p.m. Denver time. And welcome, Kyle. Good to see you. Very timely. Let me... All right. Well, usually I start out rambling about something as we give everybody a few minutes to hop on. Hopefully we'll have a few more people joining us. So this past week, I'm trying to think of, did I have anything interesting? Chiropractically, it's always interesting what comes into my office. And this today, very simply, this is kind of just a very simple, this little mix of a thing. She's like 26 pounds. She's super cute. And her name is April. And she came in for her follow-up appointment. Doing great. She was actually completely asymptomatic by the time she came in for her new patient appointment. But I asked Mom, as I usually do, if I missed it or if it's something new. I'm like, we always start out with, hey, what's going on? What's up? Any, nothing's going on. And I'm looking at the dog. I'm like, did she have her poodle leg last time she was here? Meaning, did they shave the forearm for a catheter? And she's like, oh no, she's been to the ER. I'm like, for what? Like, this may factor in. And she had eaten 6 months worth of joint supplements, glucosamine. So she went in, had to throw it up, did the whole charcoal thing, all of that. And I'm like, well, it's actually really good information for me, because then I went and checked specifically for a hiatal hernia syndrome, which I believe I've talked with Dee on the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast a couple times, but we can actually affect organs. It can actually affect hiatal hernias in dogs by a type of an adjustment. And I'm like, and sometimes you actually, I know I talked to Dee because she actually had a friend's dog that we discussed his poor eating habits. And that was one thing that could be going on. And so I checked. It was positive for it. So we did the adjustment for it. But talk about great timing, because a lot of times a big GI vomiting episode, either at home or induced, can kind of cause that to set up a little bit. So took care of that for her, and then we adjusted everything else. And actually she's been quote unquote released to like maintenance care, which in my world, minimum every season, every quarter, right? And I'm like, well, considering tomorrow I think is the first day of winter, first day of spring or thereabouts. But I give people something to think about to get their animals in. All right, Kyle and Jessica are here, and I have been waiting. I've been super excited about this. Kyle writes, the Beagles did good at their first appointment. I'm reviewing his question on the podcast. So Kyle and Jessica's Beagles went for their very first chiropractic adjustment. And so I was super excited for the Beagles and for them. Did well. Anything interesting come up in the appointment? Would love to hear about that. And yes, Kyle's question from last week, which was a stumper, I'm hoping he takes it easy on me tonight, was he preps his dog's raw food the night before and he puts the probiotics on. And he was wondering if that was a good thing, a bad thing, not really a bad thing. We were actually more thinking that it was beneficial because the probiotics would have a chance to marinate on the meat. And so I brought up this question to Dee Dee, and while we're doing our podcast, she's sending the question over to Adored Beast, and they're getting back to her. I'm like, that's called triple tasking. I can't do that. But they said, nah, not really. It's really not a thing. It's no foul, no gain, no, it's just, it is what it is. So prep your food the way you want to. But it was a great question. I had no idea what the answer would be on that one. Jessica says the beagles loved it, but they didn't like being separated at the office. So we will be all together next time. Yeah, it's probably a traditional vet office. One went back into the room and then the other one. Yeah, they don't tend to like that much, right? And Keisha's here. Hello, Keisha. Yeah, I think just intuitively since the beginning, if their household buddy came with, everybody came into the room. And the one that's not being worked on can be a bit pesty, right? They may nose in here and what are you doing? And sometimes the one on the table or the floor or whatever, depending on what you're working on, gets a little agitated. The other dog's like, hey, that's my buddy. But generally give them a few minutes, they settle down. They also got massages. That's amazing. Good. I see. And then they switched. Yeah, that makes sense, right? I never actually had rooms to work with. I've had a space where I had one dog on a table and one dog on a table. They were far enough away and they had dividers, but yeah, usually I kept the families together. It's just what I did. But yeah, live and learn, see how it goes. Awesome. Yay. So excited for them. I'm going to put Keisha on the spot. Hopefully she's in a good place to answer me. But I wanted, they watched their walk and saw what was tight. And I watched the adjustment. It was very cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it really, I never did a lot of that, watching them walk. I never had really good locations for it. And I say this, I've said just a little move of her fingers. Yeah, it absolutely. There's not a lot to it, especially on a beagle, right? A Newfie, sometimes there's, a Great Dane, sometimes there's a lot more elbow grease and stuff involved, but a little beagle, it's all finger, really a lot of finger maneuvers. But watching a dog walk, I back in the day, I did a lot of agility dogs. I would go and set up at the agility trials. I would stand there pretty much all afternoon. I would literally see 20 to 30 dogs. I can't do it anymore. My fingers can't do it anymore. My shoulders certainly can't do it anymore. And there was always a massage therapist there. Well, not always, but a lot. And she always had the dogs walk, And I don't, and I didn't. And I still don't, and I didn't. What I was generally looking at, and maybe the people noticed, maybe they didn't, was as the dog walked up to me, as the dog's standing on the floor, how is the dog thinking about jumping on the table? Are they just full bore flying onto the table at the time, or are they thinking about it? And so now I have these windows in my home office, and I can see them get out of the car. I can see them kind of turn and go potty. I can see if the boys are lifting their legs. I rather see them move in like a house space, which is what I have. How do they get really nervous going over the hardwood? Can they turn? Because a lot of times knee issues, if they can't just like stand on one leg and twist on it, pivot on it, and they kind of got to be a jerky move. So I watch a lot of movement, but I don't particularly have them walk back and forth. There's no wrong way or right way on that. If I have a show dog and we really want a beautiful side gait on that, then yeah, we'll go out on my driveway. I have this one particular Boston Terrier. He's hysterical. He does his whole adjustment first. He has to go first. His siblings cannot go first. It's hysterical. Hang on, I gotta remove some things. I've never had these before. How exciting. All right, let's try that. And then we work on his brother. He now has a new sister too. And then I usually walk everybody out to the car, depending on the weather. And there's hugs, and these are some of my favorite people and my favorite clients. And we're catching up and all that jazz. They're having a house built. And we always watch him walk. And he always needs one or two more little adjustments. And a couple visits ago, his mom goes, just like me. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. She's like, I get my adjustment. I get up. I move a little bit. The girls get adjusted. And then I usually have to do something else. I'm like, well, that explains that. So it's very interesting, right? And so we get into a rhythm and we get to know each other. And clients that are long time, you get to know really, really well. And so that's pretty awesome. Okay, Keisha. Keisha's been playing with Adored Beasts, Felix's, the probiotics for the kitties. It's Fido what for the dogs and Felix what for the cats. And so I just want her to update how it's going with her kitties, because I have mine on order and I've never put probiotics in my cat's food. So I want to hear from her. Yes. I just want to update on your probiotics journey and your little sprinkles and how it's going with the kitties. And they are eating it. Would Jump for Joints provide arthritis relief for a non-raw fed dog? Absolutely. Flora, thank you. Kyle to the rescue once again. Felix's Flora. So I did the training on the Soil and Sea, which is a new probiotic out of Adored Beast. And so that's on order. The Wolf's on order. And then I have Felix's Flora on order. So I'm going to jump in and try some probiotics, which I can't say I've ever been a huge fan of before. I just never, the information for the people's always been like, well, doesn't really do this. You really need this. And we're not even sure about that. And then I'm like the animals, but we're going to give it a whirl and I'll let y'all know. So yes, Jump for Joints. I don't know if you've gotten the new bottle or seen the new bottle, Kyle. I ordered some of that too, but the directions seem to have changed. And you get a pump and you get and the spray is on the Jump for Joints. And you're just supposed to put 2 sprays on their food twice a day. Super easy. Oh my God. Like, because my dogs like lick their platters absolutely clean. I actually remember to put 2 sprays in the bottom of everybody's bowl. I don't give it to Torchy. He's too young, but all my older dogs get it. Super easy, twice a day. Phew, phew. Now, my understanding of homeopathy was you were supposed to give it away from big meals, but hey, if that's the directions, I'm going to play with that. I know my super senior guy, he will be 15 in the spring, has been much more active and much more stubborn. So I know he's feeling really good. And the poodle has been so annoying. Now, granted, the weather has not been cooperative for our walks every day. And those walks are shorter and, all that winter jazz. But I love when something's easy to give to your animals. I love, 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 love it. It's like one of my criteria. Is this easy to give them? you know? And so I'm super thrilled with that. But yeah, it'll help. I mean, I always find it interesting. People would rather spend money on supplements than getting them on a species specific diet. I'd rather you put your money over there, but people are much more conditioned in this reality to, do whatever you want and fix things with a pill, be it a supplement or big pharma, right? A pharmaceutical. And so changing that mindset can be very difficult. So I guess maybe Keisha doesn't want to give us an update. I'm putting her on the spot. She might be in the middle of something too. She's so sweet to join us and she's usually double or triple tasking too. So we'll give her a break. But okay, I'll just tell you what she told me. How about that? And she's not. She said, sorry, I got distracted by Kyle's comment, which is great. I'll get right there in a second. She's not doing the full doses yet, but she is sprinkling it on the food. And I believe she does a lot of canned and dehydrated raw, if I'm correct. And the cats have been eating their food, which when you have kitties, it's like, woohoo. Felix is Flora. Yeah. It's really great. So I don't know where she is on getting up to the full dose. Maybe she did not tell me, but what was something she was looking for? Like with mine, I would love some firmer poops with my kitties. I think we could use some firmer poops. So that's going to be what I'm going to look at after adding it in. So I don't know if she was looking for bowel changes, vomit changes, just some overall, I don't know if we needed more energy. Do we have more energy? Something like that. So maybe Keisha can pop that in when she has a chance. Yes. So Kyle suggested bone broth and chicken feet, but then took back the chicken feet because she's not raw fed. You can do the chicken feet. Right? Why? The bone broth is awesome, right? Especially homemade bone broth. The longer I do this, the more I look at just processing. I make bone broth. Okay. So love bone broth. That's great. If it's kibble fed, you said not raw fed, but if it's kibble fed, you could suggest that they soak the kibble in the bone broth for like 12 hours. Like if people are just not going to go off of kibble, especially here in Colorado, because we are so dry here. The kibble is so dehydrating to the body instantly that if they put the bone broth in, you can even water that down a little bit in the morning, let the kibble soak all the way till night, till dinner time, and then feed that, and then make the next bowl for the breakfast. So it's not a huge prep thing because a lot of kibble is we want it easy and fast, but basically it turns to mush, and we want the mush because we want the hydration. It still doesn't really fix the nutrition. The bone broth is definitely going to help. That bone broth is going to help with any kind of leaky gut. It's probably helping is probably giving it a little too much credit because when the kibble goes in with it, you might break even, maybe, right? Kind of depends on if your dog's having trouble with digestion on the kibble anyway. But break it even. It's going to help, increase the nutritional value. Okay, cool. And so my kibble people, I at least try to get them to do that. And if they can and they have a small animal, get them to canned. I'm not as hardcore as Neely, right? Like she has no patience for anything else, which is awesome. But if you can at least get them on canned, big deal. That's huge. The moisture is huge and the meat content is huge. Then you go into the argument of where did the meat come from? What are their source? That's a whole nother, it's not great, right? We know that. But the moisture is better and the meat percentage is better. Looking at cat food, which cat food still boggles my mind because every vet would probably agree with the statement that they are obligate carnivores and they need to eat meat. And then they go off and recommend kibble and they recommend, stuff that has everything else in it. But I was looking at canned cat food and I found one brand, high-end brand that did not have any kind of peas, did not have any kind of fillers, tapioca, all kinds that stuff. And there was one brand that I found, and not even like the super, super high-end stuff. And actually, some of the Purina ones had less ingredients in it, less peas and veggies and fillers and carrageenan and tapioca and all the starches in it than some of this other nicer stuff. I found some brands I never even heard of that delivers to your house every month, kind of like the farmer dog stuff for cats. And the ingredients were abysmal. And it was shocking to me. I think one of my friend's cats, she was feeding, I don't remember the brand, middle of the road, higher brand. It wasn't Friskies. It wasn't, Fancy Cat or Fancy Feast. And the dog and the cat gave himself IBS because there was, I forget what the ingredient was, I'm so sorry, in there. And she's like, but she loves that one and she's been eating it for months. Exactly. That statement, they've been eating it for months, is a clue that maybe now we are having an irritation to that. That now we have too much of whatever ingredient, if it's listed as good, listed as bad, you think it's good, you think it's bad, whatever it is now become an irritation and an inflammatory process in the body. And she switched her off and doing really well, but we had to get her off that food, even though she loved it. And I learned this adage, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've perpetuated it like many things, right? We repeat things and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But in people, when dealing with like allergies and sensitivities and whatever word you want to use on that, is it's what you love and what you hate that causes an irritation and inflammatory process, an allergic reaction, a sensitivity in the body. Right. And so if this cat really loved this, and I find it kind of true, like, oh, but they love this. I'm like, yeah, or they won't touch this. So just kind of file that away, keep it in the back of your head, Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's interesting, right? Neely said no raw bones. Her non-raw fed dog. I don't know. I wouldn't do it together for damn sure, but as a, something away from a meal, why not? But then again, that's also the hardest part to digest, right? And if we're already stressing the body with kibble, adding that in, and as raw feeders, we know you up the bone, you end up with drier stools, right? So depending on that, I guess I have to maybe get Neely on here and have her thought process on that, right? It may just be simpler for people just to always just go with no raw bones. It may be aggravating a system that's already taxed. Well, maybe I'll have to ask her, see what her what her thought process is. That's what I want, is her thought process. I think this dog is can fed, not kibble fed. Yeah. And so I think we're already one step better, right? Always in quotations. More for reducing vomiting, says Keisha, the Felix Flora. They were going through phases of vomiting. Still some of that happening, but not seeming to be a major thing. Awesome. I'm just thrilled that they're eating it. So I'm super stoked to try it with my kitties. What else is going on? What other questions? Let me see. What else can I ramble on about? Otherwise, we might just call it because it is the holiday season. And we can use all kinds of things for excuses, right? COVID has allowed for the massive amount of excuses for people not to show up for whatever, right? Half the time I think it's funny and the other half the time it's irritating. Yeah, isn't that wild? Mm-hmm. So Keisha has 2. I have 2 cats. Yeah. I think I've mentioned my kitties, haven't I? Well, you saw Ruby, right? Couple times ago. So I have 2 black cats. They are 8.5-ish, something like that, I think. And I got them from a client on a ranchette out in the suburbs. And I was talking to Dee Dee about it. That's what. I get so confused on who I'm talking to about stuff, so I apologize if you're hearing things again. But they came from a ranchette. They've never been vaccinated. They've been raw fed since 8 weeks. They were hunting with mom before that. The running joke is they may live forever. Yeah. Mine are frozen raw fed. And that's all they've ever had in my house. I'm sure they had some kibble out on the ranch, but that's all they've had. They get into the dog's beef. Well, they eat beef. They love beef, which is kind of weird for cats. Both of them love the same stuff. I'm so grateful. They love venison. They love these big animals. They don't like chicken. I do occasionally rotate through some primal and some steves just to mix it up, and because kitties can get so stuck on one thing that I want to keep mixing it up on them. So they're doing great. Any tips for what seems to be chronic ear mites for my cat? I use coconut oil to clean them and then diet DE 1 week or so. It has to do with my living environment. Any suggestions? So are they raw fed too? I know the dogs are. Did the cats transition? Because sometimes you can't get cats to transition. Like they are cats. They are so difficult. Mine eat the bones that are ground up in the meat. But they don't. No, they don't. Yeah, they'll eat the bones that are ground up. Yeah, they don't chew on bones. I didn't know about that back in the day. Otherwise, I probably would have tried like chicken feet with them and some other stuff. I should do this, right? I've always wanted, you can buy frozen mice for them. And I've always like, oh, I want to do that, but I haven't done it. So maybe I'll get on that. And give you a update on that. They do hunt the mice that get in the house and in the garage. I mean, and they eat the heads like any good cats would. Although sometimes they play with it too long and we send the poodle in and the poodle kills the mouse. It's quite funny. He gets in there so fast and he chomps on it. And then he literally stands there with, he won't swallow it. He's like, and so I have to grab it and yeah, it's delightful. But he's kind of he's the killer if they play with him too long. That's what goes on in my house. And then we throw them outside, and I'm sure some of it back into the food chain. Stocking stuffer. And my animals do not get Christmas gifts. They eat raw. I'm like, and the goat's milk and the adored beef. No. You get to live here. That's your Christmas present. I am thinking about the ear mites. Our indoor games. Yeah. I bet everyone here has gotten the email. So we plugged Susan Garrett in the email, which went out a little late today, one of those days. Mostly my fault because I dropped the ball halfway through the day, and then, well, here we go. Keisha has a life and has other things to handle. She's very sweet to me. But Susan Garrett is a Canadian dog trainer, and I love her energy. I love her take on training. It's what you would consider all positive, but she also she has a different name for it, and I'm blanking on what it called. But she also talks about not being that person that walks around with a fanny pack full of treats all the time. Like, you need to transition from treat to your hand to, like, and she has all these terms for it. Oh my gosh. I can listen to Julie Ann Lee talk about Adored Beast. I know exactly what she's talking about. I can listen to, Dogs Naturally. I can, Dr. Billings, whatever his last name, I always mess it up. Not a problem. But when she goes into dog training terms, like, I don't know if you noticed, Keisha, but I took one of the links out because that video went way over my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so she breaks it down, but that's just one thing I'm trying. I'm working on it. And I follow her videos and I work with my animals. But yeah, there's a lot of terms and terminology in dog training, but I really like her energy. Ashley, who's generally, she has a lot of online courses. I don't have time to actually be that good and get on online course, but I watch her videos. I recommend you check her out. And then we sent out a video with 20 games to do inside with your animals, because most of the country is going to be sub-zero Arctic, and you should not go outside and walk your dog, and you're going to have to need to do something with them. So that's what we sent out. So check out Susan Garrett. I think she's got a couple, I think it's Shaped by Dog is her podcast. But Ashley, who's usually here, talks about her as being like the border collie of people. Like, she is so like up here, and I always joke she never brushes her hair, but she's delightful and she's clear. And what I really like is the videos that we see of her dogs, because her dogs are really well trained, right? I learned many, many years ago when talking to trainers is, how are their dogs? Right? Like, kind of like my tripod, right? Like, as a chiropractor, how is my tripod getting around in later years? Well, he's a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix. He will be 15 in the spring, and he can still do stairs, run around, and does a mile walk with all the other dogs, whatever that is, 5 to 7 days a week. We kind of keep him down to 5 days. But so, you kind of like those calling cards on your profession, like, the dentist, how are their kids' teeth, right? Like, how are their teeth? Hairdressers, how's their hair? Which sometimes is quite amazing, by the way. So that's that, indoor games. I did watch all the videos I put out in that email, and they were all great information. She likes tug. I'm a chiropractor, not a huge fan of tug. But you keep it short, you keep it fun. Really do not let your two dogs play tug with each other. Please, just don't do it. When you play, you can kind of give and let go and, end the game. When they're playing with their other four-legged friend, they're both out to win, right? And those necks are going in all different directions, and it makes me cringe. So just my point of view on that. They like free callers online. Hi, Jamele. So good for you to pop in here. Oh yeah, let me post in my bones. No, I'm gonna bother Neely. Actually, you know what? We can bother her right now. We're gonna bother her right now. So yeah, if you're game, Jamali, if you want to give us an update on how it's going with the mixing of the food, or have you run into any other questions, concerns, we would love to support you in that. See if Dee Dee can do it, I can do it too. Do, do, do. Yeah, a little music when I do this, huh? Okay, I'll have to give her a little smiley face too, right? Okay, there we go. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Kenny G, yeah. Is he still around? I don't know. What else? Anybody traveling for the holidays? I'm staying here, hanging out with my in-laws, people I hang around with all the time. I always think it'd be romantic to travel in the holidays and, week in Mexico. But then I think about, well, I have to travel during the holidays and everything's more expensive. So I stay home. Many of them could apply for kids too. Oh, those games? Is that what you're referring to? Especially the crate games. I'm kidding. Although there's an actual whole website, right? I don't know if you watched the videos too, Keisha, or not. You did a great job picking them out. I mean, the titles were awesome too, but I think it's crategames.com. And I didn't go to that. And I don't know if that's Susan Garrett's or not, but if I could just get owners to crate train their dogs, I'd be thrilled. I was talking to my groomer today, and she's a friend that comes over and brings her little, my guess it's a bull terrier mix, all white, little longer leg, not quite as stout, and doesn't have the head, but just something about her. She really, and they had an incident. She attacked one of the dogs that lived in the house, this little dachshund. And, she got very mad at the owner, and the dog, the whole thing's very stressful, right? And the little dachshund's fine. She has a little scrape here and a little scrape here, and she'll be good to go. And she got adjusted today. But she's all upset, and the dog's not welcome here. And she's like, once I cool down, I told him, yeah, she can be here, but only if she's tethered to him. And I'm like, well, that kind of, now you have one dog on a leash and nobody else is on a leash. May or may not go well. She also has a couple big dogs, and there's lots of dogs in this small house. And I go, what about a cage muzzle? She's like, he won't even put her in a crate. And I'm like, ugh. It just makes me groan because she spent so much time in the crate before he adopted her. I'm like, okay, she's 9 months old. How long did she stay in a crate? A few days. Yes, I have met dogs. I have literally met dogs that have spent 8 years in a crate, right? We have met these dogs that were puppy mill dogs or this reason or that reason. I have met these dogs. They are not generally real sound in the head, okay? but you have a 9-month-old puppy. How long could she actually have spent time in the crate? And so we kind of had the same point of view on that. But that also takes me to where owners live in the story. Oh, maybe she spent 10 days in a crate because, I don't know. I don't actually know her background. I don't know where she came from. I don't know. I know he adopted her. But I'm like, when you stay in the story, your animal stays in the story. You know how many times I have conversations with clients, and this is a little bit more of my woo-woo stuff, but clients that are like, oh my, they lived with this owner and this owner had to give them up. And then this owner had PTSD and would have attacks. And yeah, that sounds terrible. And now you need to shift your energy to be like, now you're here. Now we're good. We're going forward. Because the more you stay in the more you're to stay in the story, the more your animal will stay in the story. That's simple. I can go on and on and on about that for hours. Hello, all. Quick question. If you were to grind cooked bones into a fine dust or granule size, would it still be considered safe to feed to your dog? Just curious. Yep, sure can. And actually, the finer you get it ground, the easier it is to digest. That's just kind of my intuition. That makes sense to me. And if you go to 4-leaf rover, I have trouble with their name. The 4-leaf rover, you can actually buy a canister of ground bone. And so some of the senior dogs, there seems to be a point where some senior dogs stop eating raw. It's like my guy who's almost 15 never thought a second in his life of not eating a meal. Like he has got a gut of magnitude. I think he's literally vomited 5 times his entire life and maybe had diarrhea on occasion about that many times his entire life. His digestive system is just rock solid. No idea why. Like, he came from the shelter. I don't know his parents. You don't know. Just him. Awesome. I'll take it. And so he's still eating raw. I have a client, she has an Aussie. The Aussie's 12 and we're thinking about cooking. But some people don't want to going to cooked food. You lose some of the nutrition when you go to cooked food. Okay. Still, in our graduation of things, kibble, canned, dehydrated, cooked, or what, those get a little, I don't know. But I'd rather keep them on raw. So you can buy the boneless blends and then just sprinkle on the bones. Right? You can't, because it's for the minerals, right? The phosphorus and calcium is important to balance all kinds of endocrine functions in the body. They're part of thyroid, they're part of digestion, they're part of, muscle contractions, they're part of the entire electrolytes like potassium, magnesium, your phosphorus, your calcium. Those are minerals / electrolytes, and sodium, and they all need to be balanced in there. So yeah, you can cook them up. It might even be easier to digest. So a lot of seniors can stay on the raw. We pull out the bigger pieces of bone, sprinkle that on. There you go. And Keisha's talking about Susan Garrett again. She has another one titled something like "Crates Are Not Cages." Wanted to share that one, but thought it might be a little obviously my point of view. Yeah, I think that was pretty obvious. I've not struggled. Well, I take that back. I only struggled with my last standard poodle in crates because I was an idiot. And I got him right out of chiropractic school. So 20, almost 20, 19 and a half years ago. And I brought him home and I had a little box for him, his little kennel. And the first night he cried when he was in there. And so I let him out. And I did not crate train him. Biggest mistake I ever did with a dog. Right then and there. He became a problem when I was trying to sell a house, actually 2 houses, like a condo and a house during the years, because he wouldn't let anybody in the house. And if you stuck him in a bathroom, he ate the bathroom. Literally. Walls, door jambs, shower curtains, my clothes that would have been in the bathroom. And then they couldn't see the bathroom, so I had to make sure. Like, he would not go in a kennel. And so I just let him get away with it. And so that was all my fault. Now, about, I don't know, halfway through his life, 8 years in, I drop him off at a groomer's because he's a standard poodle. And he walked right into the kennel for the groomer. And literally out of my mouth, I'm like, you son of a bitch, you are now going to be in a kennel. And from that day on, this dog was so brilliant. And we had such a connection. He looked at me like, damn, the gig is up. And from then on, he would actually go reluctantly into a kennel, and he would actually come to agility trials and go in a soft-sided crate because he got to go. And so that was his reward, was he got to go and be in a crate. So, but that's a little insight into my energy with my animals. Like, I've seen you do this, now you can do this. There's very little what I call coddling in my household. They're all taken care of and they're all loved on and all of that. But no, I'm not gonna, you're playing me and I'm not buying it. So a little bit of energy talk tonight, which is, I do love that stuff. Kings of Bully Excellence also asks, are enzymes always required when feeding raw to prevent runny stool? No, they're not. Sorry. Actually, let me do this too. They're not required. No. Now, would it be a good idea, especially if you're transitioning, to add some enzymes? Absolutely. Yeah, the enzymes are just going to support the body in its productions of enzymes to digest the food. And then if you do a better job digesting it, theory would be less digestive upset, i.e. puking, acid reflux, which is not a real thing, I know, diarrhea, that stuff. And so if you're worried, go ahead, do it. There is no, I can talk about enzymes. I'm a huge proponent of enzymes. Anywhere you can use enzymes, I'd love it because it's generally just a support to the body. We don't want to do them all the time. We don't want the body to become dependent because as with most things, the body's like, oh, don't worry about it. They'll give me some of those so I don't have to produce them. So you don't want to become dependent on them, but do a bottle. Stop. Do a week. Stop. See what you get. So add them back in. Oh, I'm not really liking, try a different one. All right. We're always trying to look for the damn holy grail. And it does not exist. Does not exist. All right. You're always shifting, changing, jabbing, ducking. What's changed now with your animal and yourself? Truly. And yes, more bone will help stiffen up the stools. Absolutely. As raw feeders, you got loose stools, up the bone. You got hard stools, up the organ meat, up the tripe. That's generally how we in the raw feeding world manage stool stuff. And it's also, raw feeding gives you an opportunity to really get to know your animal like I don't think anything else really, really does. Because I feed essentially the same meals. I've talked about this before to my big dogs. And Riggs, no matter what, has these little hard stools. Has been like that his entire life. Does not matter how much tripe I give that dog. Doesn't matter how much organ I give that dog. That's what he poops out. The Dobermans, and his are usually much lighter in color. And then the poodles, super dark, usually a lot more solid when it first comes out and softer towards the end. So he's much more like a little kid. He's probably holding it a little too long because he doesn't want to go out and do it. But you get to know your dog. So I don't get excited when Crosby's stool is a little soft. I just pull back the tripe a little bit. But Riggs's stool never changes. It's just fascinating. Last question. If you suspect your dog's immune system has been compromised due to rabies vaccine, is there a way to balance it back or detox naturally homeopathically? Yes. And I go straight to Adored Beast, and they have a homeopathic remedy called Rebalancer. And you start there, and it's super easy. It's a little gel that you just put in their mouth and you finish the bottle. And then we see what we got, and then we go, maybe, we add in turkey tail mushroom to help support the immune system. What is the gut like? Because the longer I do this for myself and my animals, the more that the gut is the basis of your immune system, right? And that is your gut's got to be rock solid, and our guts are not rock solid in this day and age. Our food supply sucks. The soil sucks. It doesn't have the minerals in it. And basically, when the puppy is born, they get their mother's biome. So what is their biome? What is their mother's biome like? And then if they're C-section, then it's really, really not a good thing, because they get a even more diminished biome. So do human babies, actually. It's that vaginal birth that actually populates a lot of mouth and everything with the biome, with the proper bacteria. Amazingly so. So do you know what the mother's biome is? And now we have mothers and generations and generations and generations that have been vaccinated, heartwormed, kibble fed, and there's just no biome to pass on. And so I would start with Rebalancer from Adored Beast. You don't actually have to just start with that one product. And everyone, head over, subscribe, catch Julianne's, Ask Her Anything, watch some of her educational videos on the products. She's got the new one on the silver, the colloidal silver, the wolf, the soil and seed. Like, her philosophy is amazing to me. I always knew these products had ingredients that were second to none, but I didn't get the philosophy until recently. And I love her philosophy. And so depending on what else you have going on with the dog, maybe just some healthy gut and some phytosynergy along with the Rebalancer, finish those, and then go into the probiotic products. And there's a lot of them. And so people are like, why would you have 5 different probiotics? Why not? Every product has different ones in it. And everybody's going to need different ones at different times for different things. And again, people are like, where's my cookie cutter? I just want you to tell me to buy bottle 1 and then bottle 2 and then bottle 3 and then be done, and my dog's going to be great forever. It's not how bodies work. I hate to tell y'all, it's not how bodies work. I had a client in the other day, and this Australian Shepherd, he's still intact. I think he's 8 now. And he's intact, which is a good thing for him, because his gut is not great. She has done an amazing job with him. He's on raw, and she knows what he can eat and not eat. And then we ended up talking about probiotics, and he's like, he's been on this one for a long time. I go, you need a different one. Why? Because now we need different strains of bacteria from different sources. Every product gets their stuff from different places. So you're going to get different things, even if maybe the ingredient list looks exactly the same. This is where the devil's in the details. The devil is in the details of it. And she's like, I forget what even happened. because it was insignificant to me. It was very significant to her because she's been dealing with this with her dog for so many years. And now she's like, I'm back at this, back at the beginning. And I'm like, hold it. You are not. You are not back at the beginning. You're at a different spot. And now we need to do something different. And it's frustrating to people. But we're not back at square one. That's what she said, square one. I'm like, you're not back at square one. There's no way. Look at this dog. His fur was not looking great. And it really wasn't. And she had been using plaque off on the teeth. If you're using plaque off on the teeth, pay attention to signs and symptoms of thyroid change. Because of the algae, it's not the algae, what is in it? But iodine in it. It can change the thyroid. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it can change it. So if you're using the product's fine. Just be aware. Pay attention to your dog. Found this channel from listening to the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast. Thanks for great information. It's really greatly appreciated. Well, thanks for coming. We're happy to have you. And any other questions, come on back. See, friends. We're all friends. We're all in this together. Let's see if Neely got back to me. Okay, here it is. See, gotta go to the Neely, right? If they're eating kibble, pH is going to be too high to digest breakdown bone. Much bigger risk of impaction and damage. There you go. And so remember, pH, we want it super, super low in the stomach. We want it, it should be right around a 1. It actually should like eat through concrete. And people like to say that, here, okay. You want to, I missed the text above that. This is even a better text from Neely. I think, I'm going to read this. This is quote unquote. I think raw recreational bones are fine, but I wouldn't do raw meaty bones. What the fuck? Are they feeding kibble and worrying about bones? LOL. So raw recreational bones would probably be your chicken feet, really. I mean, we can clarify that. Wouldn't do raw meaty bones. I can't say I would do raw meaty bones either. There's no way they're going to get that beef, like a beef bone or a bison bone digested. But the hollow little bones of a chicken foot, if we're thinking pH, which makes sense. So we want pH of 1, right? We want it, that's acidic. When we go over 7 is neutral. And then above 7 becomes alkaline. So we want it as close to 1 as possible. And actually dogs' stomachs aren't really any more acidic than ours. I mean, we should have acidic of about 1, 2 in our stomachs too, to digest everything. And we have a lot of the same problems and get the same meds as our animals are getting, or our animals have the same problems and the same meds that we're getting. Look at it either way. But there you go. There's your answer, Kyle. I wouldn't think anything past chicken feet, honestly, with kibble fed dogs. And that's another bonus of going raw, is that pH will drop. The inflammation drops, the pH drops, their digestion gets better. And that's where transitioning with some digestive enzymes will help that too. You can even do betaine HCl, or HCl betaine HCl, which is actually hydrochloric acid. And you can do that with your animal, and some of the Adored Beast products have it in there, and other products do too. And it's literally hydrochloric acid. We're adding acid in to help that digestion. And when you're having acid reflux, I think we talked about this last week a little bit. I'll bet money, you don't always know which body system's involved when you're seeing issues, but acid reflux, which is not a real thing, it's a protein. It's an actual digestion issue in the stomach, and it's mostly where the protein gets digested. It's not a fat issue. It's not a fat digestion issue. And so adding a product that has the betaine HCl in it, along with other digestive enzymes, is going to help immensely. your animal and yourself, actually. If you actually have acid reflux, belching, you need the betaine HCl too. If you have other GI distress on the other side, constipation, gas, bloating, that's more of a digestion issue. So our animals just generally, well, we know when they have gas, right? But if they're just bloated, that's kind of hard to tell. But if there's a lot of gas, you may be thinking, ooh, I need more digestive enzymes. If they're having more belching, acid reflux, go with a product that has the HCl in it. Most products are going to be the combo. Phew. More fermented food always helps. If they can handle it, like that Aussie, and I actually, I don't always believe my clients. And not even in a bad way. I just think people don't do enough journaling. They don't do enough making notes. They don't do enough of what's the real timeline here. But she's like, he can only handle a bite a tripe. So that also tells me what is the probiotic system, what's the probiotic, what's the state of the probiotic part of the biome, right? The bacterial part of that biome. It's pretty minimal. Now, ideally, she should start with that bite, literally that bite for maybe a month, and then add 2 bites for a month. This is where people don't have patience for this, but we could build that up. But fermented foods are always like that. I do heavy tripe. I know Neely does heavy tripe. Like most of the blends that we get from raw dog food have tripe in it. I add a lot. I add a lot of tripe. I add more organs. Those are your nutritionally dense foods, so they go in there. So fermented food is always going to help. It's always going to help the bacteria in the gut. Now, what other strains, what other strands, what other products do we also need to rotate in, rotate in, rotate in, rotate, 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 and rotate again. And when in doubt, rotate. All right, my friends. Well, thank you, Kings of Bully Excellence, joining us. If you're still here, what kind of is bully as in the bully breeds? Like what bully breed do you have? Or you don't have to answer me. I'm being nosy. And we're running a little over our hour. Any last minute? We had lots of good info in here. I'm going to thank Neely Piazza. Keisha, can you she put her link in the show notes. It just goes back to Raw Dog Food and Company's website, and you can get a hold of her there. She's where, as you can tell, that's where I go when I have a question. She's just an encyclopedia. It's just amazing what she knows about raw feeding and all the details of that. So there's always Neely to go to. You can get a hold of me, especially if we need to do a consult out of state. Should you go for chiropractic? What is your vet talking about? What does this pain really mean? What can we do here to change things? So that's kind of where I kind of land, and food's always a big deal with that. That reminds me, Jessica, we're going to skip next week just because it's holidays and everyone might still be bloated and belching from dinners, and we're just going to take next week off. I will be back January 3rd and planning on being here most weeks of the year next year, and we're going to talk about all things natural and different and supportive of our animals, from feeding to homeopath to just all the stuff I learned from my clients over the 20 years. Another awesome combo. Thank you. No, thank you, Keisha, for coming and contributing and bringing the energy of your babies with. So Kings of Bully Excellence says, I have an American Bully Classic class. It's a fairly new breed, and I just love all dogs. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Welcome. Yes, Kyle, Jessica, have wonderful holidays and happy birthday, Jessica. I know all of our Christmas birthdays are going on. So grateful for all of you. And we'll, have a great week off. We'll be back in January 2023. Can you believe it? And until then, how much fun can you have with your animals? Bye, y'all.